If we never experience the chill of dark winter, it is unlikely that we will ever cherish the warmth of a bright summer's day. Nothing stimulates our appetite for the simple joys of life more than the starvation caused by sadness or desperation. Anton Saint Martin. The Dragon Pod from Bending Not Breaking. Book 5, Ocean. Chapter 9, Infantis Sanguine. Welcome back to another episode of The Dragon Pod. This is Ben Pruitt, your host, and you all made it to episode 9, the end of the season. I will go ahead and give you a little inside detail that this is actually the first episode we're recording of the season, which is fun, but I'm pretending like it's the last. And so I'm excited to talk about the ultimate episode. This is so intense, and I have a very special guest to help unpack this episode with. You will have heard their voice elsewhere, I promise you. And so let me introduce you a returning guest. Racquel Belmonte uses she, her pronouns. Phenomenal returning guest to our show, a voice actor, sketch comedian, improviser, a teacher, a writer, and you may know her from My Little Pony or Lego Elves or Legend of Chima, but you will likely know her best for her incredible performance as Claudia on The Dragon Prince, and we are thrilled to welcome you back, Racquel. How are you today?
Ben, hello. Thank you so much. I'm doing good. I'm doing well. It's nice to be in an area with windows. I moved recently from a basement suite, so now I'm like, oh my God, there's sunshine, there's light. I'm a person, but I'm good. It's so nice to be back. Thank you for having me.
It's amazing. That's so good. Windows are nice, turns out. It's like
Turns out windows, yeah, top of the list. Didn't think so, but now, ooh, I wouldn't go back.
we're more like plants than we thought we were.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Amazing. So this is an automatic upgrade, moving from a windowless dungeon to a window full area. That's very exciting. What else is new?
Yes.
It's been a while since we've had a conversation.
Yeah, no, things are really good. I am dating someone that's been very nice. My best friend and I of 10 years fell in love. So that's a very cool new thing that's been just really fun and exciting. We're traveling a lot. We're doing like we just went to New York. Just it's nice. It's nice to embrace this new portion of my life that I've always wanted, and now it's here. So I love that. Work is fine, teaching kids. You know how it is.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. That's so great. I'm so excited. And I'm a romance novel fiend, so I'm just loving the trope of friends to lovers. This is very exciting. That's
My
just
favorite trope.
of 10 years. That's incredible.
We
Wow.
went, yeah, we went to comedy school together 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago now in Chicago, whenever 2012 was. But we were best friends, kept in touch, live in different countries. And then I went to a Harry Styles concert, stayed at his place, and here we are.
Out. Amazing. That's so great. Oh, wow.
It's cool.
Oh, I want that. That sounds incredible.
You'll get that. You will. It was something that I love is beautiful, but I was like, maybe it's not gonna happen for me. And then when it did, like once everything sort of, I like got I don't know, what do you want? What is this? What am I even doing? Once I figured that out, it just happened, which was scary, but it was cool. But it'll happen. If it can happen for me, it's definitely gonna happen for you. You're actually a good person, so.
I'm told I am a catch all the time.
You're a catch. I will let you know it this whole time.
Oh man, gosh, I
Oh,
feel like we're teetering on dangerous territory talking about my love life. I'm gonna have to bring us back to.
Spill. No,
Oh no,
different podcast.
and we're steering right back to the Dragon Prince.
Yes, right. That's right. Not the dating prince, the dragon prince.
Dating Prince. Oh my God. Dating, like imagine The Bachelor or something along those lines in the Dragon Prince universe. I would watch the heck out of that. Are we kidding me? Like, let's have an animated Bachelor season in a fantasy universe. Why hasn't that been created? We just came up with the best idea ever. Can we we're gonna partner for this, right?
We have to. BRB, I'm gonna get Wonderstorm on the line. This is juicy. This is Oh, yeah, I would love that. I would watch it in the Dragon Prince universe, and also if it was like a tangential, like,
Yeah.
it's similar. I'd totally watch that.
I want a 10 season situation where one season's in the Dragon Prince, one season's in Avatar: The Last Airbender, one season's in Full Metal Alchemist. Like, give me it all. I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Yes. Is the world ready for it?
Oh man, we just achieved a high level of nerddom there, so that's exciting.
Oh boy.
With our powers combined. Wow.
Magic.
So I'm gonna rein myself in. Whew.
Yes.
And ask you a question around your experience with season 5. You got to experience it way sooner than any of us did, and so I'm just curious, what was it like to be a part of like reading these lines for the first time and learning the story? And I'm just curious, what was your impression as you encountered it?
Well, I'll start from season 4 because we did them in chunks. Like we did 1 to 3 at one time, and then we did 4 to how many? 7, I think, 4 to 7. But the reason why I want to bring up 4 is because I really didn't know. Like, I feel like everything kind of took a really hard shift for Claudia in season 5 in terms of everything.
Yep.
Like, it was like, okay, she's still, she just took a new beat. It was like we're hitting this thing even harder now. And that was really interesting because also I'll say this, and this will make more sense. When I get scripts, usually like when we're doing seasons, they'll just, like every couple weeks we'll have a record, or like once a month we'll do a couple episodes per recording session. Sometimes I don't even realize like, is this season 4, season 5, or season 6? But this, season 5, I remember I was like, oh my God. Like after I read it, I was like, what episode is this? What happened? Yeah. End of season 5 is the episode I'm particularly thinking about, episode 9. But yeah, I loved it. As a voice actor, probably one of the most rewarding, that sounds so lame. I hate when actors talk like that. It was so rewarding to play this. Shut up. No, but it was really cool to like, they trust you too, like to just really go for it with whatever the lines they've written. They'll tell you what they're thinking, but then ultimately you just do what feels right. And they gave me that freedom, and it was cool. That was honestly one of the best like voice acting experiences I've ever had. Awesome. So it's cool. It's interesting though, a lot of fun stuff to come. There was stuff that happened that I remembered recording being like, oh, that's not in. Okay. Well, everyone's in trouble. Everyone's in trouble the next couple of.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. I love having a quote primal source, so to speak, to kind of speak on these things. It's so exciting. And so I'm curious, you mentioned like as you were going through and you're like, whoa, it was this episode that hit hard. And I'm curious if you recall any fun details just about the recording and making of this episode that like really speak out and you're like, whoa, this is worth knowing.
I didn't realize, can I say spoilers?
For season 5, yes.
Yes, I can. Okay. Oh no, I'll get sued if it's anything else.
Yeah.
And I don't have sue money yet. But no. So I didn't realize in episode 9, Claudia fully lost a leg. And I remember, so she screams. All the screaming is me, which will make more sense if you ever go back and watch it. You're like, oh yeah, that's just Racquel, that's Racquel making noise. But Aaron was, I remember, uh, they let us do a couple passes and then they'll give us notes. And Aaron's was like, so I want you to, like, she lost a leg. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, exactly, like that. So like have some have some of that in your scream. Like her leg is gone. I was like, she's gonna be like, what? Claudia's just like pieces of her are coming apart. And it was in that moment where I was like, oh, things are bad. Things are going to get bad. But I remember that direction, and that really was like, okay, step it up, step it up.
Yeah.
Things aren't, we're in different territory now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also like just envisioning, like there's a little bit of comedy in me in the loss of the leg, just envisioning what Claudia can become around like dark magic pirate and it's like peg leg
Yeah.
kind of situation. Like it's like, oh, we just came off of the ocean. Like this is like the area that were, so that was my first thought when I saw lost leg after my jaw dropped and it recovered, of course. But uh
Yeah.
yeah, wild. What a cool what a cool stage direction. Oh, by the way, you lost a leg here.
Yeah. Like maybe more pain because her leg's gone. I was like, oh, what?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. Oh man, there are so many little notes we get that are so silly and so funny, but that's one that because I'm notorious for like, I'll read the script the night before because I do like to have an element. Yes, I'm lazy as hell, but I do like to have an element of like, I don't know, like I don't like overdoing things. I even tell kids I'm
Yeah.
coaching, like, don't overread it. Just know what you're supposed to be saying. But there's always these little moments where I'm like, oh God, that nothing could have prepared me for that. Or Aaron giving a direction, like, yeah, like more pain. Like this is suffering. I'm like, oh no, okay. Anyways, I obviously didn't take my ADHD medication today because I cannot remember what I was talking about. But
Nailed it. We are officially ready to go and we nailed that section. So primal
yes,
source check. Segment check.
check.
Yeah. So now we're going to transition into talking about the lens. And so we're
Yes.
talking like, how are we going to talk about this episode? And we were thinking about a few different options, and you settled on desperation as the lens, which is a hell of a word. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to figure out like one, what does desperation mean to you, and can you tell us your relationship with it, and then we'll kind of from there kind of parse out what it really is.
Yeah. So desperation felt to me that felt to be the strongest theme. And the reason why I'm saying that is because so I watched the episode last night again. And I think from start to finish, everybody is trying so hard, so desperately to stop Erebos, or they're trying to stop Claudia from getting to Erebos, and they're trying to stop, war, or they're trying to stop something. So I don't know, when I was watching like Zubea in the beginning, because she's got like
Zambea.
pardon?
Zambea.
Is that her name?
That's what Twitter is calling her. Like
Oh, because she's like a zombie?
yeah, exactly.
I was like, did I get her name wrong? No, that's very funny, Zombea.
Yeah.
Even her like flying and she can't do it. And like you can hear it in Nicole's voice. Oh, so good. I felt, and even like listening to Jason's performance, I'm like, oh, there's so much like desperation. Like, I need to do this thing. This thing is the thing that's going to help the greater good. And everyone has their own idea of what that thing is, but the same intensity. So I don't know, like defining desperation is an interesting one. I guess, yeah, yeah. Doing, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how to like fully. You wouldn't. You wouldn't think I had a degree by me not being able to describe desperation.
Yeah, well, and I think it's easier sometimes when we have like an example, and so you may not have one, but I'm curious. Is there a time where you can name that you have kind of felt that experience in your life? And if so, like what did it feel like, and what was the context? If you're willing to share, that's not a vulnerable thing to share at all, like,
No,
right?
yeah, no, not at all. No, I'm an open book, baby. I was feeling actually recently like quite desperate. I got kicked out of the place I was living in, and
Mm,
just that it's this. I can explain to you how I felt. It was this feeling of like there has to be a way, and we're gonna try everything to get to this like final point. I need to get out of this bad feeling. I need to get like quickly,
mhm.
like the anxiety, the intensity, the like extreme emotion of like getting to that final
Yeah.
destination is just, yeah, that's how I can explain how desperation felt to me in that moment. And it could be a spectrum too, right? Like
Yeah.
I need to get an audition in on time, and I'm editing and I'm sweating because I'm like, oh my God, I'm late. Like I woke up late. There's all these things. I just need to get this in because I need to get work. I need to whatever. But the feeling is always the same. It's very intense, and you feel like you just have to push through something.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting kind of way to frame it, is it's a to be desperate is like it's a condition that ends when something is met, right? And so when a need is met, right? I don't have a house, so I'm desperate until I have found that spot. And it's, I guess, an interesting experience because desperation is related to despair, right? Like to be without hope. And it's interesting because typically what desperation does is exactly what you're describing, is this uh it leads to often, I think, rash or extreme behavior. And the thing that makes it funky is who gets to decide what is rash and what is extreme, versus what is like a perfectly logical response to a really tough situation, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like to like, because I think it's colloquially something like that sounds like a desperate move, relating to someone like texting someone back right after the date. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that sounds desperate, but like, or it's something completely different and completely logical based off of the experience of that person. So
Yeah.
labeling something as desperate seems makes me nervous, because like, are they desperate, or is that me seeing how I would react, and I wouldn't react that way, so that therefore it's a desperate move? um
Right.
right, like there's a little bit of judgment around it, I guess.
I
um
think there definitely can be, for sure, for sure. Well, even look at how people are talking about a lot of the choices
yeah,
characters have made this season in particular, or this entire show.
yeah, like
There's,
literally the whole time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the Judgment Prince. No, I love it. I think it's,
So many
I
different
mean, naturally we're gonna judge what they're doing, especially if they're framed in a way like there's violence involved.
yeah,
And in this world of the Dragon Prince, they have swords. They have like creatures. They've got like a different setup. So there's tons more violence. Like Claudia does dark magic. Claudia kills so many different things. But
yeah, that's a good point though. Like dark magic in and of itself for Callum is a desperate act. Whereas
yes,
for Claudia, dark magic is very uh a daily occurrence, like regular, normal, versus for Callum, this is so abnormal and it's a desperate move. Um
mhm,
and so it's unique to the person, and so, like, it's I can't wait to parse that out a little bit.
yeah,
But before we do, we have to remind our listeners what happened in the episode, because unlike you and I, they may not have watched it recently.
very
Um,
true.
so we're gonna do a little bit of a 30-second recap. And I'm gonna invite you to go first or second.
Sure.
Would you
I'll go
prefer?
first because I know mine's gonna be bad. Mine's gonna be a mess, and you're gonna have to clean that up.
No, it'll be wonderful, I'm sure.
Let me know when I'm ready. I gotta get into like a stance. Okay, I feel good now. I
I can
feel
count.
secure.
All right, ready? Three,
Yes.
2, 1, go.
Zombea not doing well. The three, Callum, Ezrin, and Rayla, and Soren, and Zim, they get gills so they could go underwater to find Erebos's prison. But guess who's down there? Claudia, because she killed a pentapus. And she used it to and mixed it with her own blood and made some potion. And then she lost her leg.
Yep, 5 seconds. 4, 3.
Viren is going through it,
Yeah,
and he might die.
that's the end. Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. Oh, that's so
I
good.
miss so much. I think I miss so much. I miss a whole storyline with the Sunfire Elves. Someone got betrayed.
Yeah, that was like a 30-second clip. It's fine.
Yeah.
You covered the big details. Like, we spent most of the time in the ocean, right?
That's what I thought. It felt like it.
Amazing. All right. Will you count me in?
Yes, give me 2 seconds.
All right, I'm channeling.
And 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Zombea is chatting with Dead Drago and then gets inspo to fly out and crash into the forest. And then, where's the prison? Who knows? Ezra knows. And then Callum's a powerful mage. And then Gills, but Rayla's scared. And then Terry has a level head, but Claudia goes fishing. And then Virvos is a real ship and they have a kid. And then Claudia's bid octopus and then tries to kill everyone. And then Rayla realizes she can do it after all and saves the day by cutting off a leg. And then Ezra finds a pearl prison. And then Viren Sati might die. And then the mushroom mage does really cool things. And then Miyana betrays
30 seconds.
Ooh, so much is this is there's a lot going on in this episode. There's so much.
Yeah. Oh, also, I'm happy you brought up the mushroom mage. Literally was watching it last night and was like, I don't remember him. Was he in the rest of the season? And then I was like, who plays him? I need to find all this out. But yes,
I'm asking, like, okay, who did the voice for that? Who did the voice for that? And I was like, I can't find it anywhere.
Someone's got to step up their IMDb shit because sorry, I swore.
No, it's fine. But there were several times where I looked it up, like, and it might be out there now. I haven't looked recently, but I've looked for Finnegan. I couldn't find the voice actor for. I looked for the mushroom mage, couldn't find that. Like, I was just like, where are these people? I want to talk to them.
Yeah.
Class. So it goes.
Finnegan. I feel like I knew who Finnegan was when it first came out because we were talking about it in our group chat. I can't remember. I'll find out. I'll let you know.
One day I'll figure it out.
One day.
Amazing. All right, I want to toss it straight to you. We're diving into the content, the meat of the episode here. What is a moment in this episode that just reeks of desperation to you?
Claudia, I think, and I'm gonna probably always throw it to her because I know those parts the most. But her squeezing Ezrin, like she was going to kill. She would have killed them had Rayla not sliced her arm off. I also thought of Rayla's slicing as like an act of desperation as well.
Oh my God.
Because she doesn't. I mean, Rayla's whole thing in the beginning of like season 1 was, I'm not going to kill this guy. And then she cut the leg off. But because she was saving, like, it was a desperate moment. It was high stakes. But yeah, Claudia squeezing and hurting her friends, and also the manipulating. Like, it's still me. Like, no, girl. She's just trying to get the desperation to keep her father alive.
Yeah.
Is kind of what's overshadowing everything else that's terrible and evil that could happen. She's just thinking of this one little thing. I guess it's a big thing.
It really is, like this, and there's so many different components of this that are just so rich. I'm gonna try to focus in on I'm gonna go first, I guess, to what you mentioned around Claudia, like at the beginning of the conversation, this attempt to win them over. it feels like such a hollow attempt, right? It feels like it's this surface level attempt around like, don't you remember, I'm your friend, as I like surround you with this tentacle and I'm about to squeeze your life out if you get in my way. And it's just, I don't know, like I this, and I want to be careful and not label this as a judgment of Claudia in the sense that like Claudia's the worst, right? The total bad guy. Also making some really poor decisions. But I do think that this is what it looks like to be desperate. I think this is a really good visual for this is what desperate looks like. And it's not necessarily a judgment of Claudia the person, but rather a judgment of Claudia in this situation.
Agree.
Right?
Yeah. Even in which season was it? I think it was season 2 where or season 2 or season 3 where she manipulated Callum.
Yeah, I feel
Like
like
there
that,
was, yeah.
if I remember correctly, where they're on the way, they're at the moon nexus. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, she messes around with his trust. And it I feel like that was a little, whether it was intentional or not, that's like a little foreshadowy moment to what's to come. It's like, I don't actually care. I don't see you. I want you to see me and use that against you. But yeah.
and I like again, I think my bias comes through when I talk about dark magic because I think dark magic is bad. Like,
Mm,
like, but I think part of the conditioning of dark magic of using life as a means to an end is that's kind of bleeding into how she treats the people around her also.
yeah.
People are also a means to an end, and it's really like visible in this scene where like these people are you are tools in my toolbox until you get in my way, and then you are meant to get out of my way, and I will do whatever it needs to do that. um
Yeah. And Erebos does that also. Like
yeah,
he's doing it with Vera and he's doing it with her. It's so interesting. The bleed down, the trickle down.
yeah,
Blood works. But yeah.
there's plenty of blood, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, and okay, so we talked about that, and then you
Yeah.
also mentioned this moment where Rayla cuts the leg, right? And I had a weird thought here around what I had a weird thought around the magic of this. Specifically because she has 8 limbs, right? She has 8 little tentacles going around, and this is the one that is cutting off the leg. And here's the thought, though: is it because she lost her magic? She lost the thing that was keeping her an octopus, that is what cut off her leg, or would any tentacle have cut off her leg? Because a lot of them just kind of emerged from they like were a magic source versus the ones where her legs turned into or was it just luck that she happened to cut off the leg? I don't know, this is a very nitpicky thing, so I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. I can't remember it was explained to me during recording whenever we did it like last year, but or a few more than a few months ago. But oh crap, I don't remember.
Yeah,
But I think it I don't know. I think I'd like to think in my brain, I'm like, oh, any leg she cut off would have been
right,
her own leg.
yeah.
Like, because if dark magic is an extension of you,
Mhm.
I think no matter what
Yeah,
like, she had what, five? What's penta? Five?
Penta is 5. I didn't actually count, so I don't know how many she had.
I'd like to rewatch just that part. I noticed yesterday, I'm like, oh, is that how many legs has she got? But I'd like to think it's an extension of her whole lower body. So no matter what, she would have been chopped. But I could find out. I can find out.
My brain, I'm desperate for the answer.
Yes.
But anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
But because I think what's interesting here is Rayla getting to this point is also, I think, worth talking about because Rayla was previously unwilling to go underwater and try this, and something compelled her to dive in despite her fear, right? And I don't know if that was a desperate act or not, or was that her overcoming a fear and not necessarily desperate, or was it out of desperation that Rayla got into the water in the first place? And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think maybe it was like a desperate attempt to keep her friend alive. Like I
Yeah.
think it could be maybe looked at in that sort of way instead of like her physically getting into the water. I think that was overcoming a fear, but because of this intense need to keep her friend safe.
Yeah.
Or her brother-in-law, whatever you want to call, whatever you want to call Ezrin. No one's calling him that these days.
Yeah. I think when I think about it from a despair perspective, I think that Rayla was sitting up there in that boat, wondering what was happening to those two, knowing that they were in danger. Maybe not from Claudia, but definitely in danger. And I think that I think that's kind of something that's worth realizing is that that stagnant space of I'm not doing anything, and if I don't do something they could get hurt, is okay. I am so desperate to keep these people that I love and care about alive that I am going to make this, I'm going to take this, to me, extreme action of getting into the water,
Yeah.
right? And thank goodness she did, right? To at least for thank goodness for Callum and Ezra. Like,
Yeah. No,
uh,
for sure.
but it's just wild to think around. The desperation is a really interesting thing. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was just agreeing.
The last thing that you mentioned, which was the first thing that you said, was the Claudia being willing to kill Ezrin and being willing to kill Callum and Ezrin, who were both like in her clutches. And I think about like what it would take for me to feel desperate enough to take the life of two people that I have spent years of my time with.
Yeah.
And I would have to be in a really, really dark spot. Like this is like Saw movie level desperation here around you know what I mean? Like
Totally.
it's like this is a wild accusation, but I'm equating Erebos to Saul, right?
Hmm.
To to the person who's creating the situation in which people are making desperate moves like this,
Yeah.
right? It's like talk about dark. This
So
is a
dark.
show.
So dark.
Yeah.
It's I think we talked about manipulation a bit too the last time we chatted. Um, it's I agree. I always think too, like, what would I do in this situation? What would make me completely lose sight of history? What would make me lose sight of everything and feel so desperate and compelled to like do this thing that's going to eliminate friends and like loved ones? But I oh, wait, I lost my train of thought. Agreeing saw, oh, manipulation. I feel like she is just so far gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
doesn't even like even when I was doing the lines like from an actor standpoint, it's I even like my intent, not my intention, but my whole thing was like, no, she's gone. Like this isn't even, it's not even about family anymore. It's like, I think Erebos is completely, he
Yes.
sawed her.
And it's interesting because that happened to Viren too,
Yeah.
right? And Viren lost himself. And then he's at a point now where is feeling remorse. Uh,
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't want to go so far as to say maybe he's found himself or what that is, but he's certainly found some perspective that has changed his viewpoint, right? And this is perhaps a really good transition to just Viren's experience here because at the beginning of this episode, Viren is just catatonic, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And I think that's uh medically and physically speaking, when our brain shuts down like that, that is a form of like our body is making a desperate attempt to keep our bodies safe, right? That is
Yeah.
our mind shuts down because that is the body's attempt to keep you safe. And
Yeah.
it's really fascinating to me that Viren starts off in that space because of these dreams that he's been having. And then when he sees this image of Claudia in the ocean, that it matches that dream, he snaps out of it and in a desperate attempt to save Claudia, right? And it's the desperate attempt to save someone else that brings him out of that space. It's like what a wild experience that was. Just like it's so good.
Yeah. It's wild. And like I say this all the time about like Jason is one of the best voice actors I want to say in the world. And the way there were so many little things I noticed yesterday watching it the second time, like the way he portrays like feeling stuck, like he's like, oh, I'm like Viren breaks out of that catatonic state to like, oh my God, Claudia, but then Erebos like pulls him into his prison again. It's like you can really hear it in Jason's voice. It's really beautiful. Yeah, I could talk about Jason like that forever. Don't tell him that.
Well,
But
there's
yeah,
so
yeah,
many subtle moves in that I don't think the average viewer pays attention to or notices that
hmm,
like I think they notice when it's not there, but I don't think they always can appreciate when it is there, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Uh,
1000%,
and
1000%. Yes.
it's un, an unreal level of detail that just is really exemplary. And I think that there are so many moments throughout the series where I was like, damn, that was really solid voice acting right there. Uh,
Yeah.
really incredible. Um, anyway, we are tooting all of y'all's horns.
But yes, the catatonic state, desperation, it all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like again, this connects really well to Erebos, right? We're just following the trail, right? And
Yes.
so we've gone from Claudia to Rayla to back to Claudia, and now we're at Viren, and now we're going into Erebos. And this moment, you know what? I was really thinking about what desperation looks like. What does desperate look like on Erebos? And he broke in this episode for me, and it was this moment when Viren uh, starts to walk away from him. And Viren's playing into his game the whole time until Viren walks away and doesn't listen for a second. And then you see it on Erebos's face. It was drawn so well. And Eric says it really well. Just stop. And it was this total break of character. And Viren stops, and then he goes right back into it. And like Viren had him. He was this close. It was like, oh, you had him. And that was to me when people have so much control over their bodies and how they present and they're manipulating everything around them, when something doesn't go their way, it's just like one little break in it can and so that was a moment for me where I was like, that's what desperate looks like on
Yeah.
Erebos. Um,
Yes.
yeah, like I'm curious, did that land for you? What was that moment like, or what was a moment for you that you noticed around Erebos?
Yeah. Well, I think exactly what you said. I noticed that yesterday. I was like, "Oh my God." And yeah, Eric is the way he does it is incredible. Um the other thing where I see Erebos being desperate is pulling Viren away from saving Claudia.
Yeah.
Like fully taking over his body like
Yep.
no, no, no.
I'm just borrowing your consciousness. What?
Yeah, how convenient. I'm taking it right now when your daughter is in the water. Yeah, I think the no was probably the most powerful. And then I would say, yeah, that was another thing I noticed. Yeah, yeah, Erebos is disgusting. Like as a as a character, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's a bad dude.
I agree. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we talk about the just for funsies the bomb that was dropped from Erebos in this around having a child, right? Where like everyone in the center watched that scene and was waiting for him to say Callum and he didn't. But like everyone was like, no. And like I did a visual there of my mouth just dropped. But yeah, like wild writing. The staff writers had a lot of fun writing that scene. I'm sure of it.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
oh man.
I
Anyway,
feel like we're gonna have a lot of like homunculuses at
yes.
conventions now because it's like their child. Yeah, that shocked me too. And I like saw the script before. I guess I didn't read that part because when I watched it, I was like, what? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. But yes,
Intense. Wow.
wild stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Uh, can we talk about Terry?
Yeah.
Can we talk about someone who is not desperate? And I think it's Terry. I think like he is so willing to just go with the flow and is just along for the ride with Claudia that it's interesting because this early scene right in the beginning of the episode where Claudia's like, where is it? I don't know. And just like can't think straight and can't process. And Terry's like, I don't know. Oh, the map's wrong. Huh. Oh, I bet it's underwater. And then like immediately Claudia's like, oh, that's it. And it's I so there's two, I think, thoughts to that. One is I think, and I'm wondering what your feedback is on this. Does desperation close us off to imagining other possibilities in certain situations? Like, does it blind us perhaps to certain things and certain potential options? And then the opposite of that is when what we see Terry modeling for us is just a constant like go with the flow, like, oh yeah, this could work. So I guess my question is this Terry's personality, or are we seeing something, and it might be both, are we seeing desperation as a blinder almost? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, totally. It's tricky. There are moments where I was prepared to say, Terry, that could have been seen as like a desperate attempt to keep Claudia from, hurting herself or doing whatever, but she still did those things. And to go back to what you said, I do think desperation does sort of put these blinders on where you can only see certain options. You can usually only hear the loudest one, or you can, whatever feels, I don't know, everything gets kind of clouded when you're that desperate. So you're like, yeah, we're going to try that. Let's do that. Like how I was when I was moving and I got kicked out. I'm like, okay, great. I got to do this then. Right. Let's sell everything. Let's do this. You don't really, there's little things that we don't notice. But so I agree with that. And then Terry, part of me wonders, I'm like, is Terry just like desperately wants Claudia to be happy and safe, or like does he really want her to free Erebos? Like I think about that a lot because he's an elf.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, I do as well. um and there's stuff that happens that I cannot obviously say, but yeah, it's all very, it's tricky because sometimes I'm like, oh, he just wants, like, he loves her and he wants her to like succeed at this thing, but I don't think he gets it. So maybe Claudia has manipulated him out of desperation as well, which I could kind of, I don't know, just knowing how she is as a person, why wouldn't she manipulate Terry too?
Well, and I guess that's I, I I just it's something doesn't add up for me. And I'm still
Yeah.
I don't think I have all the puzzle pieces yet, which I think that's the point. Like that's how it's written. But it does feel like something doesn't add up. And it might be that Terry is so desperate for love, right? Just I have found someone that accepts me for who I am, that loves me, that cares about me, and I think love does that to people. I frankly, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a scary thing. Like love is scary, y'all. Like it is the I I I think something that is really interesting about love is that we have no control over whether someone loves us back. And we can like feel so much for someone and
Mm-hmm.
be entirely in their at their mercy because we love them and they might love us or they might not, and it's just who knows how it goes. And it's I think about that a lot and how people do desperate things for love, and
Yeah.
I think we see Claudia doing that in this episode. I think we see potentially Terry doing that in this episode, and it's just manifesting very differently. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ugh.
It's like it's so interesting with Terry because if you do think about it as, oh yes, he desperately wants to keep this person who loves him for who he is and all of like, you know, I think that Claudia, I think that Claudia, oh my God, I lost my train of thought again.
So it goes.
No, I had a good point. Sorry, I heard a toilet flush upstairs and I was like,
Dun dun dun.
Uh, um, Claudia. Oh, Terry. It's like enabling. If we're thinking about it as Terry
That's how I think
behaving
about it. Yeah.
out of desperation to keep this person who loves him unconditionally, no matter what, and also like Claudia doesn't care for elves, and yet she's
Right?
so
Like it,
he must feel like, okay, I gotta, like, I am special, I will keep this around, I will. But if you think about it that way, it's like desperation causing him to enable her to do these bad things instead of like, I don't know, does that make sense?
it's confusing and complex, and I think that it's hard to name. It's hard to
Yeah,
put language to, right? And I think
totally.
that's really interesting about this dynamic that we have between them. And it's very clear that, you know what it reminds me of? And it reminds me of partners who are in domestic violence situations where
Yeah.
people who are the victims of that often don't leave their partner for a variety of reasons. And um, this has a lingering feel of that I don't know that I can be exact around why that is coming to my mind, but it definitely has that feel to me.
Totally. No, there are elements of that I agree. Because Harry, throughout the entire season, especially this season, is like, I'm going to do things to make Claudia comfortable and happy. Comfortable and happy. I need to maintain this thing. Like he made the boat so she could sleep and move at the same time. I don't know. There's all these little things where they could be seen as like, oh, you're very kind, but also it's like, oh, are you doing this so you don't get hurt? It's very tricky, and I totally see what you're saying. Yeah, Claudia's doing a lot of stuff that I don't fully agree with, but that's not up to me. I'm not the writer.
Well,
I just read.
you-
But I watch and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like a bad person. Or she's maybe not so much a bad person, she's just,
bad
man, her
situation.
circumstances. Yeah, terrible situation. And then I think to him, like, would I do the same thing? Maybe.
Yeah, it's so unreasonable to think that we can make a rash decision from the outside, like watching with just this 20-minute segment. Yes, we have 4 seasons before this, but even with all of that, like we still don't have the full lived experience of Claudia. And so
No.
um it's just we can never make that assessment or judgment about people that we know or love or care about, even if they're fiction.
Yeah.
And perhaps
Yeah.
especially when they're fiction. But okay, we're doing well. Uh,
Yes.
I have two more things that I want to bring up. Do you have one that you want to go to before we go to those?
No, I think I pretty much covered what stood out the most to me. So let's hear it.
Amazing. All right, I want to end on a question that I will wait on that one. So what I will talk about first is Zombea. So
That is such a good nickname. Whoever made that up, in my will.
yeah,
Done. Done.
it's so good. The so Zubea is in the very beginning of this having a delusion, which I believe is, caused by this illness that she is contracting, that is taking over her body. And the blight, or whatever we're calling it, that is taking over her, is really interesting, where she is having an allowed conversation, in which she is debating taking rash action or just letting go. And she is being driven to this point, through a physical condition that is causing mental health problems. And I find it really interesting because, like, mental health is physical health, right?
Yeah.
It is impossible to, separate those two, even though our culture does, because, like, her mental health right now is directly attached to her physical health, directly
Yeah.
attached to her body. And it's just really interesting to me, because I think what happens is, when we are in ill health, physically and or mentally, what that does is it often pushes us to this limit. And especially in the United States, where, capitalism is the worst, and we're in late stage capitalism, patriarchal bullshit. And what's happening is, when we are ill, we talk ourselves into, no, I have to keep working. No, I have to keep producing. No, I'm not good enough if I don't do X, Y, and Z. And oh, I have to save my child. No, and it's really interesting to question whether this is a rash or extreme thing, because one might say, no, you should rest. This is what you should be doing for your health. But also, I think we, with an outside perspective, know that if she were to rest, she would die and turn into Zombea for real.
Yeah.
This act, this rash or extreme behavior, to fly when you know you cannot, is ultimately what saves her. I assume that this is fungi guy, is mushroom mage, is healing her.
I hope so.
That's the implication, right? So that was a whole long diatribe to say, it's really hard for me to discern sometimes whether taking the action or resting is the better option, right? And it's hard to tell when it's just you, I don't know.
Totally. No, I agree 1,000%, especially like she has this physical thing happening to her. So obviously the desperation and the intensity and everything probably feels, or probably is, like at its peak. She's constantly living in this, like, I don't want to use fight or flight, but it's a fight. Like, she's in this fight. Same with like mental health, like with like OCD, or with, anything, anxiety. Like, it's like a constant fight or flight. Like, you're at this this peak, not whatever, you know what I mean? But it's interesting that she was still even able to come up with the two, like do I rest, or do I do this? Do I fly? Do I whatever? It's just really interesting that there were two options. Whereas, like, you look at Claudia, you look at everybody else, and it was like all the ways that desperation manifested. Like, Rayla just cut off the thing, like, without thinking. Zombea actually had time had time to, like, okay, like, rationalize it, which was interesting. Claudia is not rationalizing. Viren spent a whole episode sort of like re-rationalizing.
I think you make a really good point though, because you gave me a little bit of language there around like she comes away with a binary. It's
Yeah,
do I stay or do I go?
exactly. She had a
And
beautiful musical number.
well, it's very similar. I think that's a really good way to frame it. And so the question is, does desperation narrow our focus to believing that there's only two options, this extreme or this extreme? And as I think about all these moments that are acts of desperation, it seems like that's what it does, right? It's like, okay, I have one option to either die or to cut off this leg. Okay, I have one option, kill Ezrin and Callum, or not. Or I have
Yeah,
an option to save Claudia or to remain catatonic. Like it's all of these moments seem like they are boiled down to like it's either this or this. When
hmm,
in reality, there are so many other options that fall by the wayside because we can't imagine another option when we're desperate.
yeah.
That's how it feels to me.
Totally. Desperation, I guess, okay, to go back to how would you define desperation? I guess it's like choosing between I don't want to say a plethora, but like a few different extremes and
Walking.
not thinking of the gray area, not thinking of like, because yeah, activated at such a high state. It's like, yeah, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like it's,
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting. Um, Desperation can be, now I'm like trying to do it for myself, like what I was trying to say. But yeah, yeah. It's yeah, you can only see the extremes and you can't focus on. And I do think what the show does really beautifully is like, well, what if? Like, let's play in the gray area. Because it does play in the gray area a lot, like the right or wrong. Well, what happens if this happens? What if this person who's typically like, on the positive side of things does dark magic, like Callum, for example? What does that make of him? Does that mean he is a terrible person? Yeah, I like that the show plays in the gray area a lot because we don't. I think a lot of the times, I don't know. I think of times where, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
wild, wild,
So good, so rich, right? So what a rich, oh, so good. Okay.
right? Yeah,
Um, okay, my last question doesn't necessarily have an answer, so feel free to just, slap me in the face for asking this.
never.
But okay, so there's a little bit of a paradox I'm noticing around this whole arc, which is, Claudia is trying to find Erebos. And I can't help but wonder if the drag gang also wasn't searching for the prison. It seems like Claudia wouldn't have found it at all. Especially within the time frame for Viren, right? It seems like perhaps this whole situation might have been avoidable by trusting the system that was protecting the prison in the first place. And so I'm wondering if the feeling of desperation and the actions it leads us to take might often lead to the very situations that enable that which we are trying to prevent, right? Because
Yeah,
it seems like if the drag gang had just stayed put and trusted what was going on, then I don't know. There are so many things that were preventing Claudia from getting there along the way that they just happened to help her get. And so I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Like it feels like these desperate acts to protect the world are also enabling the people who are trying to rescue Erebos and save Erebos and release him.
totally. On one hand, I'm like, well, I guess entertainment value, but at the same time, it's like, no, like nobody's perfect in this show.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. And that's what I love about it is like, yes, people have good intentions. I think everybody, arguably, in that show has good intentions,
Yep.
arguably.
Yep.
But yeah, you're so right. Like it's never really been put in front of me like that. Like they could have left it. They could have left it.
No.
Claudia could have just done her thing, opened the prison, and then they could have dealt with it after, but it was like, no, we got to stop this now. And I can't even remember exactly, maybe you can remind me, how they like I know there was the whole boat episode and they went into a town. I can't remember how they were like, we got to stop Claudia.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It was interesting because it became a race to find the prison first.
That's
And
right.
this race led to Claudia getting a lot of clues from from the dragging and what they were doing. And they each got like Ezrin ended up getting more information from Domina Profundis and knowing what the prison looked like, while Claudia didn't know that, but she had the map that they didn't have. But she got that because of how, I don't know. It's a little
Yeah.
interesting. But anyway, that's just a question. I'm like, do I cause most of my problems when I'm desperate by doing exactly what I shouldn't do?
Yeah, sometimes that does happen. I do it. I do it all the time. I think that's a great example of people behaving in a desperate manner, but thinking they're doing the right thing or like trying to do the right thing because they only see good and evil or
Mhm.
like they only see these things. Okay, I didn't realize that was an act. That I think that was desperation. I'm going on record to say that they behaved out of desperation, the Drake Gang.
Nailed it. All right, this has been an incredible discussion. I want to shift us to our next segment, which is the sacred practice. And so this season, we've been taking on sacred practices with our guests and treating the show as if it has something to teach us. And if that's not already evidenced by our conversation, then hopefully this will give us a fresh look. And so for our listeners, we are going to take on the Wonder Square as a practice. And this is perhaps not one of your super well-known practices, but it's a really neat concept. And it's called a Wonder Square because typically it's done in a 2x2 grid in which you fill in the answers. And so instead of doing that, we're just kind of going to go through them one step at a time. And what you do is you pick a random sentence or a random line, as it were, from the show, and then you go through these 4 steps with that line. And so I paused randomly throughout the middle of this episode, and I landed on 11 minutes and 54 seconds. And the next line that came was, "You are my guest." And Viren responds with, "I do not want to be here." And it's right in the middle of this conversation between Erebos and Viren, where Erebos is like stalling and preventing him from chasing Claudia. And so the first step of the practice is, what does this line make you think of? And it can be related to the show. It can be related to your own life. But when you hear these lines, what does it make you think of? And I'll read them again. "You are my guest. I don't want to be here."
It's pretty powerful.
Right?
It's really powerful. Watching it too yesterday specifically, I was like, oh, ooh.
Makes me
I
feel
think, yeah, I don't want to be here. It just I think a lot of that, sure, Viren fed into quite a bit of it and got to the point where he was at, but like that was out of his control. When he had finally come to, because being in the catatonic state was also kind of out of his control physically. He had no control over his body, just whatever was happening in those flashbacks, but he didn't have control over that either. So now he has even less control. He physically was like brought, not physically, I don't know, brought into a prison, because that's Erebos's prison, right?
Yeah.
So like imprisoned on his, like not on his accord, and wanting to save his daughter. Like he's fully choosing to, in that moment, like, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
So that was a cool thing that's just another thing. Um,
For sure.
yeah. Did I
Yeah.
answer that correctly?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's what does it make you think of? That's what you thought of. For
Yeah.
for me, you know what it makes me think of is when I am a guest places that I don't want to be. So the things I'm thinking about, like, oh, I have to go to this party and I know that I don't want to go, but I have to go for various reasons because my parents are making me go, because my friends are there and I'm going with them elsewhere and I don't have a car ride, so I have to go. Like it reminds me of places that I have to be because exactly what you're describing, this lack of control and agency that I have. And it's like framed as, oh no, this is a good thing, this is a wonderful thing that you're a guest here. And it's like, no, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be a guest in your house.
You
And
made me come here.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
I guess control is the operative word here to that this is making us think of, for sure.
Hmm.
So that's step one. Step one is, what does it make you think of? Step two is, how does this line make you feel? What are the feelings that come up for you physically? What are you feeling in your body? But also, what are you feeling emotionally when you hear this line? And again, I'll read it one more time for us. You are my guest. I don't want to be here.
I, speaking very frankly, like it feels gross.
Yeah.
Like it feels really not okay. It's like physically forcing someone to do something or be somewhere when you have no consent in the matter. That always feels nasty to me.
Mhm.
Um, there are varying degrees where Viren has put, like Viren was working with Erebos at one point,
Yeah.
but he is also having these revelations like, oh my God, I fucked up. Oh, excuse my language. Oh my God, I fucked up. Look at my kids. Look at my son. Look at my daughter. Now look at my daughter.
Yeah.
And I could save her. And the thing that he then cared about, he was fully forced
Yeah.
out of it and back into this really uncomfortable catatonic state. It just feels gross. It feels like no agency. I don't know. No agency, no choice. He
Yeah.
didn't have a choice. Erebos is in there. And I also, it makes me think too of like, okay, Claudia, I don't think Claudia has a choice. I think Erebos is so deep in there.
Yeah.
And it's gross. It's really gross. It makes me feel gross.
Oh, I like slimy was the word that came to my mind. It also makes me feel scared. Like
Yeah.
I imagine that feeling, and it's like I feel my heart rate increasing. I feel like the temperature under my armpits rising. Like I feel like a physical fear when I imagine myself in that situation. And like that is, oh, I just got chills. Like it's like,
Yeah.
like it
I know
feels,
I'm stopping myself because it's like a lot.
it's bad. So okay, let's venture away from feel. We've got that down, I feel like.
Yep.
So step one, think. Step two, feel. Step three, what is this line calling us to do? What is the action that this line is asking of us? You are my guest. I don't want to be here. And initially, I'll respond quickly because this is
Yeah.
what like initially I'm like, pay attention to the people in the room who, who don't want to be there, and like, how can I help? What can I do in, and I'm thinking particularly social situations, like parties who are guests in my home that may not want to be there? Like, how can I be a host that is not saying, oh, you're my guest, but instead is like honoring the fact that this person is not want to be here? And what can I do about that? How can I see that and honor it? I guess I'm feeling called to honor the people who who don't want to be present in my presence.
Yeah, like meeting them where they're at. I think that's so important, and that doesn't happen with Erebos at all. He doesn't meet anybody where they're at. It's yeah, I agree though. I like the idea of okay, if somebody is at your home and you know they're uncomfortable or whatever, you try to make them comfortable. You try and like what is it? Hey, if you want to go, my room is free. It's upstairs, third door on the left. If you need to sneak away for an hour or so, just like go for it. There's no choice though. There's no option. It's just like in this scenario we're talking about, it's just like none of that is given. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
I don't know. What were you asking? Because maybe I can come up with a better answer.
Yeah, well, and so like I guess for you, if something different comes up around, what does this line call you to do in your life,
Oh,
right? Around, so you are my guest, I don't want to be here. When you think about what that is leading you, what action is like, I'm gonna do this because of this line, because does that make sense?
yes, I see. Yes, I think you know what? If somebody said, "I don't want to be here," I'd be like, "Okay, you don't have to be here." And it goes back to choice and it go giving agency and choice. That's always something that is forever going to be so important to me. Uh, yeah, I'd give the option. Well, you don't have to be here. Nobody is forcing you to be here. If you want, I'll Uber you somewhere. If it's making you this uncomfortable to be here, you don't need to be here. Um, yeah, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Nailed
Cool.
it. Step
Yes,
three.
yes.
So step four, this is wonder. And so this is why it's called the Wonder Square. What does this line make us wonder? What are the things that are there any missing pieces around the conversation that we've had so far that we're like, I wonder what it would be like if and filling in the blank there. So I'll read it once more, one final time, since this is our last step. But the line is, you are my guest, I don't want to be here. And I'm curious what this makes you wonder about.
I guess if I were the one saying, you're my guest, and the person is responding, I don't want to be here, I guess I'd probably wonder, like, well, where would you rather be?
Yeah. Oh,
But yeah, where would you rather be? Where? So it is going back to the meeting someone where they're at. But I do wonder if Erebos was like, you know what, fine, fuck it. And he like dropped Viren back into his body.
yeah.
What would have happened? I always like I yesterday when I watched it, I was thinking about it. I'm like, but what if he was able to go down there? What if it was Viren who,
Yeah.
helped Claudia and also brought everyone together? Like,
Yeah.
what if there was the option to leave?
Yeah. I really wonder about how much control Erebos has, like really has, and how like what are the limits of the control? Because like your boy had a baby while in this prison. Your boy is able to take people's consciousness and steal them to this prison. He's able to he has a lot of reach for someone. Like, so imagining what he can do outside of this prison but also,
Yeah.
but I really wonder, because what we see when we flash back to Viren's body is that he's holding a knife to this homunculus. Like, he's got two hands on this thing and he doesn't know how he got there. He's like, like he's shocked that his body is like that. So not only is Erebos controlling the mind, he's also controlling the body. And so I'm really curious about like what is the limit here, and why does he have this much control over Viren because of his prior connection? Like, can he do this with anyone? It's just there's so many questions I have around like what is the limits here. So
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know that the limit exists. Gonna pull that from Mean Girls. The limit does not exist.
Yeah.
And again, without spoiling anything, I think Erebos is just, we'll find out. We'll obviously find out. I think you're right though. Like something happened in the past in their relationship that like got to that point. I think Claudia too, like Claudia was around with
Yep.
Viren and Erebos for that, for however many seasons now. And even she is so different from like Soren who left.
Yeah.
I think Soren is a good example of this is what happens when you leave. This is what happens when you're stuck. And this is what happens when you're right in the middle now.
Yeah.
So
It
yeah,
really
tricky.
is. Amazing. Well, that was our Wonder Square. Amazing. Like that's like one sentence. I guess it's two sentences, but one little moment can give us that much. There's a lot to be learned. Imagine doing that with every sentence. Ugh.
Oh, loaded.
We're doing that with one. That's enough. Amazing. So that is going to bring us into our final segment, which is gratitude. We like to end on who we're thankful for. And I would love to pass it straight to you. Based off of our conversation, who is a character in this episode that you are thankful for and why?
Ooh, I am most thankful for Terry
Mm,
because it takes a lot to be in a relationship like that, but also to be the calming force in someone's chaos.
uh, yeah.
And whether Terry completely doesn't understand or does understand, it's choosing to stick with it and trust. And like that's hard to do. Loving is hard and trusting is hard. Accepting love and accepting trust is also very hard. And I think Terry's a hero in that he does that all the time. And he doesn't know, like he doesn't know Viren. He knows Viren based off of like, meeting Claudia and him, being dead for most of it. But yeah, Terry, I give it up for Terry.
I love it. No,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I think that's incredible. Okay, I am really grateful. I think I'm gonna pick Rayla here. It takes a lot of chutzpah, so to speak, to face with fear like that. And she clearly has the constitution and has demonstrated that she is capable, like throughout every season that we've seen. But this is a moment that is just like, I know how difficult it is to have something that you're scared of, and then to have failed in front of the people you care about, and then to do it again. And just
Yeah.
I just am really grateful that we get to see that example of someone doing that, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, totally. I always bug, like jokingly, me and Paula bug each other because we're the only like two girls in the cast, like the main cast. So we'll bug each other. But like Rayla's an amazing character. And
Yes.
I've noticed it. I mean, I've always known, but especially the last two seasons, I'm like, okay, Rayla, I
Yeah.
see you and I love what you're doing because I think she's probably the best character in the show. Like in terms of rational, in terms of whatever, like she's doing exactly what I think everybody else would sort of do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Oh, well, that brings us to the end. You know what? I
No.
realized just now that we totally like skimped out on we listened to your recap, and then we didn't follow up with Kareem and Miana.
Oh
Um
yeah.
and that's just but you know what? It's just there's so much to cover and we can't cover it all. But
No, I will say I wasn't expecting that though. I wasn't expecting her to do that. That was wild. I was like, what? But then
that's
I realized I'm like, well, yeah, maybe everything's so intentional in that show. So intentional. So we'll see what happens.
yeah, we sure will. And
We
thank
sure
goodness
will.
there are two more seasons to come. So
Yes.
yeehaw.
You're in for it.
So I would love for you, if you want to be found, how would you like to be found via the people who are listening?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, RackAttack5, or you could follow me on Instagram, RackCity5. I like the number 5. Don't add me on Facebook. Just don't. I say this all the time. I don't know. I get so many ads on Facebook. I'm like, I don't even use this. Stop. But yeah, if you want to follow me, Twitter, Instagram, I won't call it X.
I absolutely just Twitter. Yeah, I don't know. That was a weird change.
Stupid. I have so many opinions about Elon Musk. But anyways, another time.
Yeah, amazing. And for everybody who's listening, of course, if you are finding us for the first time, you can find us at BNB_pod. Highly recommend checking out all of our social media that I don't post on, but you can reach out to us and I'll go on a tweet spree every now and then. But other than that, I don't post too much. But that does not mean I'm not going to respond to your DMs if you have questions or thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. You can absolutely choose to support us on Patreon, though. BNB_pod. We are trying to get to more patrons to ensure that our producer is getting a living wage for the time that he is putting into this podcast. So would appreciate any help with that if you are capable, especially if you're the type of person that is like listening on every Tuesday right when it comes out. That's if that's you, consider it. But I totally get it. Listening is enough. And if you can't do a financial, don't worry. Racquel, this has been incredible. What a fun conversation it's been.
I always love talking about this show with you because it's the type of conversations I like to have.
Yeah.
And they're not often is somebody asking you like, how does, desperation manifest itself in this, that, like, it's so interesting. It just really beefs up the show.
Yeah.
And really just, everything hits different after these. So yes, thank you.
It is my pleasure. And this has been an incredible season. This is the end. It's the first one for me, but it's the end of the show that you're listening to. So thank you all for sticking with us throughout all of these episodes. And I appreciate you for continuing to support us. And until next time, everyone, be well and do good.
Bye.